And now we begin another new season of Doctor Who. This one is season 7, and I was given the DVD by kids for Christmas, as I was with season 1, so we're not going at them in order. And most people in the United States, unless they have BritBox, are not able to get most of the Tom Baker episodes except what's available on DVD. The only thing we could find available on Blu-ray was the first season of Tom Baker and the 7th. Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd, and it's interesting to start this season because there was a big change in Doctor Who that everybody could notice. From the very beginning of Tom Baker's run in this character, they've always had the same opening with the same music, with the same costuming, more or less. He started out with kind of a red coat and it became kind of a sand-colored coat after that. But generally speaking, except for the assistants, the companions, everything was pretty much the same. And although in the first season we never saw the inside of the TARDIS, once was established, did not change much. And it came along a time when things had started getting more under Tom Baker's control. Now, Tom Baker was the most popular doctor for many years, and to a certain age group, still more popular than a lot of the newer doctors. However, as the show was going on through 6 years, he was starting to exercise a lot of his prerogative as being the star. And in doing so, he was able to get his way in a lot of times. He did not always follow the script. He had lived quite a bit. There was a lot of comedy, and that was egged on somewhat by Douglas Adams, who became the script editor in the 6th season, where he was able to put a lot of whimsy into the stories. And it was enjoyable, and a lot of people watched it. But when it was time for a new producer, a new story editor to come on, those people decided that Doctor Who had lost its way, that the stories were becoming too much slapstick comedy and not enough science fiction. And so they intended to get it more that way. And the main person there was John Nathan Turner. In an interview that Tom Baker did, he was not disliking of John Nathan Turner. He said he got along with him pretty well, really, but there was kind of a struggle as to who was in control of the show, and Turner was definite that he wanted to make some big changes to things like wardrobe. For the first time, the Doctor gets a completely redesigned wardrobe. He keeps the scarf, but it becomes red and purple. He has a long coat, and one thing that he didn't like, in fact, the costume designer didn't like much, were the question marks on the collar. And that became kind of a thing all the way through Sylvester McCoy, of having question marks on things. It didn't seem, when you're trying to get more serious, it seems kind of odd that you put in little things like that, to my way of thinking. However it is, they also changed the music, and instead of using the people who had done the music before, they decided to go completely to the radiophonic workshop. And since this was 1980, there was kind of a disco sound to it, kind of a, well, cross between disco and Vangelis, or Vangelis if you prefer to pronounce it that way. So what we have here is a lot more music in this particular episode than they used in most. Usually it was kind of a transition kind of thing, and here it became almost a constant background because they wanted to play with the model. They wanted to see if they could do more with music, more with special effects. By this time, there were more effects generators in video production than there was before. And in like the early days of the internet, when everybody made a web page that had stars and sparkles and flashing lights and emojis all over it, they went a little crazy, I think, with the special effects. They were hoping that they wouldn't look quite as cheesy as the ones that had done before, but in retrospect, they looked even cheesier because the effects even then were, well, they were groundbreaking at the time, but at our moment, very crude, very 8-bit. And so what we have here is a lot of graphics generator stuff. Although in this particular one, their tachyon field generator, whatever they called it, was rather interesting. It took like 3 different actors in order to do the effect that they were doing, but it was pretty cleverly done. They also have a lot more sophisticated camera work, the more extreme close-ups, which don't do well when you have the budget that they had. Really, the budget wasn't much more then than it was before. And so an extreme close-up on a monster that's made out of wool isn't really going to look like anything except a close-up of a monster made out of wool. So there were some things that they kind of were kind of hit and miss on. Also, the narrative didn't follow quite so clearly. There was a lot of jumping about from one thing to the next, and I have a feeling that, once again, they were more interested in visual effects and musical effects and costuming and trying to science it up than to really have a good narrative. And so we will chalk it up in this first episode to opening night trial and error, and see if that does improve as we move along in the 8 stories that are in the 7th season. This is all 4 parts that we looked at this time, and if you have opportunity to buy the video, I don't get any money for your buying that video, but should you want to get the video, it might be interesting to watch just from a historical point of view. Tom Baker is still in places. Acting is superb. He is changed into a much older version of himself, and he plays it with an amount of subtlety that sells it completely. I was very impressed with that. I'd like to know what you think, though. Please put it in the comments below. And as we can find more adventures, I specifically would like to see the Key to Time when they first teamed up with Romana, or when they had some of the other companions along in the earlier things. We'll see if we can find that somewhere down the line. But for now, we're working on the 7th season, and I hope that you'll see us when we're back next week. And until then, don't go far.